All right. Good morning, or maybe good afternoon, evening. I'm not sure which. Probably closer to evening for you, Anne Marie. Hello. Glad you could make it on live. Yes, the wind is howling and it's overcast. Um, I was enjoying it this morning. Sitting at the table, eating breakfast, and just enjoying the cloudy weather. Um, I enjoy it because I don't have to live out in it anymore now that I'm retired from the army. So there's that. Okay, let's get into this. In the car at the moment. Okay, well, we won't ask you to stand up or do anything crazy to play along. Probably shouldn't be commenting either. All right. What are we talking about today? Radical obedience. This is one of our what we call boundary lines. And you may be more familiar with the term values, but just having something that you value is insufficient if you don't have a behavior that is associated with what it is you value. If you really truly value something, you're going to know what it looks like to put that value into action, to behave in a certain way that says, yes, I do value this. And so for this year, for 2022, the boundary line that we have with unedited life that was highlighted by God for us was radical obedience. And we have 11 of those. And if you would like to check those out, see what they are, and actually read the definition. I'm not going to read all the definitions. I will read the definition of radical obedience, but or the behavior associated with it. You can go out to the website in the About section. You can find all of these. Hey, John, glad you made it on. All right. So our boundary lines, and that's what we call them because these are uh, help us define the behaviors with which we go about taking action and go about our lives. They kind of keep us in pleasant places, as the scripture says. Your boundary lines keep me in pleasant places, and so that's what we have. We know that values just simply aren't enough. So we wanted to make sure we had behaviors with them. And so what they are for us is living loved, oneness, freedom, celebrating everything, outdoing ourselves in honor, growing in ownership, blameless problem solving, radical obedience, communication, generosity, and defiant joy. Those are the 11 that we have as values, as boundary lines that have associated behaviors with them. This is the way you can expect people at unedited life to behave, to interact with each other, to interact with other people. It's just part of who we are. And so the one that God highlighted for 2022 is radical obedience. And the definition with that is recognizing personal flaws and brokenness and choosing obedience anyways. We will agree with whom God says we are and live fully. So, regardless of circumstance, regardless of situation, whatever it is going on in our lives, we are going to choose to be radically obedient and really accept that outside of those things, God's in control. And so we're going to agree with who it is that He says that we are, and agree and say yes with what it is He's called us into. And we can look at this past year and say, have we always been radically obedient? Meaning, right away with an immediacy and a completeness, been obedient into what He's called us into? Not every time. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just it's the reality of what's happened. We haven't always been completely 100% radically obedient in the moment, and that's okay. As the year has progressed, we have gotten better at it each and every time. Good morning, Pepper. We've gotten better at it each and every time, and so it's been exciting to watch the growth throughout the year. And we can point back to the middle of the summer when we had the conference, when Rebecca King came in, and and she spoke in that first day, that Saturday night. Excuse me. There was a real weight and fear of the Lord that fell on the place, and there was a challenge issued there to get on board with what God's called you into, or just don't come back. And those are pretty bold words to say. And we have um, really taken a stance in that to say, uh, we don't we don't want to say that God doesn't love you any more or any less. But the fact is that we really want to work with people and build them up and launch them out into whatever their ministry is, whether that's in business or in ministry. And that's not exactly how she said it. Um, it was something to that effect. Get on board or get out, or don't come back, something like that. Um, but we've really kind of doubled down on that to really push that, because we want to be radically obedient. We want to um, really really stay in line with what it is that God's called us to do. And so that has been the highlighted boundary line for us at Unedited Life here in 2022. And to be perfectly honest, we believe that has been kind of a theme for the church as a whole, based off what we see going on in other places. And we haven't sat down yet to look at what is the highlighted boundary line for 2023, but likely it's still going to be radical obedience there with retraining and everything that is going on with the themes for 2023 out of the prophetic word that we've received. That's likely going to be the case, that continues on. And I know we have 11 of those boundary lines, and we may add to that list this year. Whenever we start to see something coming up over and over again, we look at, oh, well, maybe this is a boundary line for us. And if it is, we add it to the list. And retraining being such a big theme, that may become one of the boundary lines that gets added to this list, because at each and every new level of glory, there is a retraining that takes place, because you have come up higher. And so now you're learning what it is to operate at that higher level. So you're essentially going through some retraining, and maybe the same things that you're already gifted in, but now you are getting a look at the higher level of this thing. You get called up higher, and you answer that call, you come up higher, and now there is a different weight to it, or a different focus. And so who knows? We'll see. But we know that from the prophetic word, retraining is a big theme for this coming year. And so this morning, I just wanted to talk about radical obedience, because I feel, can ascension be a boundary line? That's a great question. I think it probably could be. Yeah, we'd have to consider that. Is this something you're going to be covering in your course with Kingdom Indivisible? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. These boundary lines are really kind of wrapped up into everything we do. We haven't necessarily considered focusing in on them with Kingdom Indivisible, but it's a possibility for sure. It is definitely a possibility and likely to happen, because there are certain aspects of this that are going to need to be highlighted throughout this, oneness being one of those. That is a huge one that we're talking about specifically as it relates to what we do locally, what we do internationally, around the globe with one another. If we are one body of Christ, then that has to be something that is discussed within this. And so, yeah, sign up, uneditedlife.org/Kingdom Indivisible. It'd be great if you could have a teaching on boundary lines. Yeah, we could definitely do something like that. That's a great idea. Thank you. for that. We'll definitely put something together for that. You might see that in unedited chats coming soon. So, all right. What I wanted to read this morning on the backside of this, excuse me, discussion about radical obedience is Deuteronomy 28. This is blessings. The first 14 verses are blessings for obeying God, for being obedient. And obedience is a subject that we've seen kind of pushed away as if obedience to God is something that is not required. Like, I don't necessarily have to be obedient. He hasn't given me a call to obedience or anything like. Weird. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's something we've seen, is that this is obedience is somehow not required of everybody. So I'm not exactly sure how that goes. But anyways, so the first 14 verses of Deuteronomy 28 are all about blessings when obeying God. And then you go from verses 15 through the end of the chapter, verse 68, is all about the consequences of disobedience. So we're not going to get into that list. That's a really long list. But I do want to read this first portion just to kind of get an idea of what happens on the other side of obedience, and particularly radical obedience, when you hear God calling you, you hear him speaking to you, and immediately and completely there is a follow through on those things. All right, so Deuteronomy 28. So now it shall be, if you diligently obey the Lord your God and be careful to do all his commandments, which I command you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. All these blessings will come upon you and overtake you if you obey the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the country. Blessed shall be the offspring of your body, and the produce of your ground, and the offspring of your beasts, the increase of your herd, excuse me, and the young of your flock. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall be when you come in, and blessed shall be when you go out. The Lord shall cause your enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will come out against you one way and will flee before you 7 ways. The Lord will command the blessing upon you in your barns, in all that you put your hand to, and he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God gives you. I love this, that the Lord will command the blessing upon you. So in your radical obedience, he is commanding blessing to be upon you. That's pretty incredible, in my opinion. Verse 9, the Lord will establish you as a holy people to himself, as he swore to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. So all the peoples of the earth will see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they will be afraid of you. The Lord will make you abound in prosperity, in the offspring of your body, and in the offspring of your beast, and in the produce of your ground, in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. So that is that verse 11, is said a different way than what was previously said. So there's a repeat there. The Lord is going to make you abound in prosperity in every aspect of your life when you're inside of obedience. It's pretty incredible. So when you start to spot these things where you're seeing something repeated, you should probably kind of sit up and take notice and be, okay, what can I find in here? What's really being highlighted here? So look for these things. All right, verse 12, the Lord will open for you his good storehouse, the heavens, to give rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. Interesting there. To give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. So whatever the work of your hand is, when you're in obedience, he's causing the rain to land in its season for you. And it says that you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. So you're going to have such wealth that you're going to be able to lend, but you're never ever going to need to borrow. That is a promise I'm going to take hold of, because I love the idea of being able to be so generous and have such access to abundance. I don't have to worry about it. Generosity is just going to become an everyday occurrence that's joyful, and it's never going to have to be weighed against, oh well, before I can be generous over here, I need to check and make sure there's going to be enough. You don't have to worry about it, right? There is enough to lend, and you never have to worry about borrowing. Verse 13, the Lord will make you the head and not the tail, and you, excuse me, and you only will be above, and you will not be underneath. If you listen to the commandments of the Lord your God, which I charge you today, to observe them carefully, and do not turn aside from any of the words which I command you today, to the right or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. So that's another aspect of something that we have been seeing this year, excuse me, and talking about, is that singular focus on Jesus, not looking to the left or to the right at either politics or religion or whatever else would pull your focus away. And there's a lot. There is a lot that can pull your focus away from Jesus everywhere you look. And it's even as simple as wasting time scrolling social media, that when maybe he's calling you into conversation, prayer, worship, whatever it is, he's giving you maybe a word for somebody in the place that you're at. And instead you're being distracted by something else. And I know I have succumbed to distraction many times, and there is still a pull. And there are just so many distractions out there. Anyways, I won't get into a big long list of those, but there are many. And so making sure that we have a focus on Jesus, we're not turning to the left or to the right. We're just staying the course, staying focused on him, and agreeing with who it is that he says we are, and saying yes, and taking action into what it is that he is calling us into. In your radical obedience, there is blessing, right? And there's great blessing. There's great abundance there. Try it out. See what happens. I would love to hear the reports of what it is that you find going on. All right. I think that is everything I wanted to talk about today. Get signed up for Kingdom Indivisible if you haven't already. It's Wednesday mornings, 9 o'clock Central Time, 9 a.m. Central Time. Every Wednesday we'll do 8 weeks on, 1 week off for the first half of the year. And then it will be once a month for the remainder of the year, for August, September, October, November, and December. So get signed up for that. uneditedlife.org/Kingdom Indivisible. Go check it out. Get signed up. We look forward to seeing you. 3 p.m. where you're at, Amory. Thank you. I hope you get signed up. So check that out. All right. Have a great week, and be radically obedient. Check it out. See what happens. All right. Love you all. Have a great week.